Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's begin our next panel session. Panel 3, titled The Future of Fiber Laser Technology. Sitting on this panel, we have Ken Zerko of SPI Lasers. Dr. Ken Zerko is the General Manager for SPI Laser LLC and is responsible for all business in North and South America for SPI Lasers, headquartered in the UK. Dr. Zerko has served on the board of directors for LIA and SPI Lasers and has been a gold sponsor for ICALEO for the past 12 years. Thank you so much for your support. Next to him, we have Paul Denny, the Director of Advanced Process Development at IPG Photonics. In the position he's been in since January, he's been looking at industry needs and potential markets and the development of process optics and lasers needed to meet those needs. He has been involved in laser materials processing for the past 37 years, and he is a past president of LIA, a fellow member of LIA, and he's also a member of AWS and ASM. And sitting next to him, we have Dr. Nathaniel Quick, our Executive Director here at LIA, who needs no introduction as well. Great, so to kick things off, let's start with our first question. What are the next generation of applications that are being pursued by fiber laser technologies, and what advantages does fiber laser offer in these applications?
I can start with that.
Sure.
Okay, so fiber lasers, I would say first off the top, the advantage of fiber lasers and the breakthrough they've made in the marketplace comes from a couple of design essentials. One is that it's an end-to-end sealed optical path, and the other is that the gain medium and the fiber delivery medium are a continuous waveguide, which guarantees the mode quality. So with this, the fiber laser is able to deliver high mode quality in a cavity that needs no adjustment over life. So that makes it ideal for manufacturing situations. The applications that can take advantage of this, these days especially, are in the domain where a fiber laser operating parameters can stretch beyond what a typical laser source might do. And that actually happens perhaps in a few different domains. One example would be high single mode CW power. So by virtue of having this guaranteed single spatial mode waveguide, once you can establish the manufacturing technology to get high intensity light through it, you can do things like high speed remote welding, which is now becoming an enabling application in the e-mobility sector. And then another example would be that with a MOPA type architecture where you have a small agile master oscillator followed by these fiber amplifiers that guarantee the mode quality, you have a source where you can on the fly adjust the pulse duration, the repetition rate, the peak power. You sort of have all these independent knobs. And what that opens up the possibility for in manufacturing is a single source with a single set of optics that can be electronically tuned on the fly to do sequential processing. So as an example, deep engraving followed by a cleaning step, or drilling followed by a surface clean, something of that nature.
Paul, Nat, do you want to add anything?
I mean, Ken's correct. I think another approach of looking at what's the next processes that we're going to be doing with fiber laser is look at the poster sessions, look at the presentations. We see, in a sense, we see where are the needs going to be. And part of it's driven by, actually, I think Dave Belforti and I had the conversation. We've introduced the fiber laser as a high quality, lower cost, more robust system to the industry. Its first effort has been to replace other technologies, whether it's laser or, if you would, more conventional. So I think that will continue to happen. But now what we're seeing is what can we do with that energy source, that reliable source, to go into new applications that may be demanded by our society, which may be more toward the electric vehicle, may be to replace some environmental processes that are now becoming environmentally, non-acceptable, such as the cleaning or texturing and things like that. So I think we have to look at the fiber as a new tool, and how many different ways can we modify that tool to do what is needed by our society.
Great. Nat, did you have anything to add?
Yes, I would just like to ask, it appears that then this technology offers advantages in large-scale processing systems compared to conventional lasers.
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, the fiber delivery, it doesn't necessarily have to be the fiber laser itself, but I think that the whole fiber delivery is something that we've seen change industry, especially the automotive industry. And that goes back not only the fiber laser and to some extent the disc laser, but also we go back to the high-powered CW neodymium YAGs. We had the ability to have reliable delivery of energy source at the end of a robot or inside of a cell, and that allows us to do, if you would, inject a process into more of a production line in a more of a conventional manner than having, if you would, an island of technology that we always had to take it to the process. Here we can now, if you would, install a process into a more overall larger manufacturing capability. And we've done that with electronics and some medical devices. There's still areas out there where the laser, it's not necessarily a technology issue, it's more of how do we address the safety issue, like how do we introduce a fiber laser to the assembly line in a automotive plant and meet the safety requirements without having to go into a complete lockdown, if you would, of the system, or large, thicker, as the higher powers become available, how do we introduce it to, say, certain shipyards or certain larger structures? And there have been some successes here, but it's still a tool that's not been fully utilized, and partially because it needs some work on installing it. So.
I guess I agree with everything Paul said, and would also say that the fiber lasers, by virtue of having essentially, you can consider it like a closed box. There's a resonator in there. It doesn't need any attention. Just turn it on and it works. And then basically, as long as your process optics are solid and your manufacturing environment is understood, it becomes relatively easy to adapt a fiber laser process into what might conventionally have been a non-laser type of application. So replacing chemicals or replacing tools that go dull or whatever it might be.
And building on to the different applications of fiber lasers, what unique benefits do fiber lasers bring to medical applications in particular?
I think in terms of medical applications, fiber lasers basically took over from lamp pump lasers about 10 or 12 years ago for stent cutting and pacemaker welding and things of that nature. It really comes down to having a beam quality that can be relied on to be within a very tight range of specification over a large number of units, so that a medical device can get the FDA certification, the process stability meets all of the requirements, so that the medical device manufacturer can assert that the device is going to be reliable and part to part within a very tight tolerance of variation.
Yeah, and I'd have to agree. I mean, that's the big thing is reliability and robustness of the process. I mean, to some extent, price has also made it more affordable, and possibly cost-effective ROI is more easier to attain with a process such as the fiber laser. So I think that's all something that's changed the industry.
One further comment on this is, we saw, let's say 10, 12 years ago, a lot of first laser applications still being based pretty much in the United States or in the highly developed countries. I think as fiber lasers began to displace the lamp pump lasers, you started to see more of it going offshore Puerto Rico, Costa Rica, and whatnot. So basically, the level of skill to operate could be reduced and therefore more cost-driven out of the production without sacrificing the standards.
Great. Nat, did you have anything else to add?
Yes, this is taking a detour away from materials processing, but as far as fiber laser technology being used as a surgical tool, do you see some unique advantages there?
I would say probably not. The direct laser on tissue applications, things like tattoo removal and hair replacement and so forth, that sort of went to longer wavelengths that are more eye safe. I think in terms of surgical tools, no, the laser is not the direct mechanism. People can still use more expensive lasers with wavelengths that more closely match tissue absorption or cauterization or whatever it might be. So where fiber lasers are most effective in medicine is in the manufacture of medical devices.
So another question I have is, what new materials are being developed for the construction of fiber lasers?
New materials, well, so fiber lasers have a very long and colorful history. I think one of the interesting things in the fiber laser community is that over the past 10 years, most of the independent fiber design and chemistry capabilities have been snapped up by large companies, as SPI was by Trumpf 10 years ago. There's a little bit of sort of secret sauce in there. There are technologies such as hollow core fiber, which are being used sometimes just as delivery optics, where basically you can maintain mode quality with ultraviolet light or light that doesn't normally play well with glass. So there are those technologies out there.
Paul, Nat, do you want to add on to that?
Yes, sort of an extension of that with some of these newer technologies. Sort of an extension of that with some of these new compositional technologies. Is it possible for fiber laser systems to accommodate wavelength tuning?
I've got an opinion on that. So I've seen over the years, startup companies like Mobius, which was acquired by IPG, gain some degree of success in blue and green generation. What's difficult, if you compare trying to generate harmonics and fiber to a bulk optics laser, a bulk optics laser has the advantage that you've got access inside the resonator to high circulating intensities, and you can actually put a harmonic cavity inside to take advantage of that high intensity and create actually a harmonic cavity. And so basically that lends to an efficiency in creating the harmonics inside of a free space medium, which is simply not possible if you have a fully sealed infrared generator, which then has to go single pass through a crystal to generate a harmonic. So the other thing is that these single pass harmonic generation crystals typically work best with a single polarization and a single frequency, both which work against the core design of a high power fiber laser, where you intentionally spread the spectrum and intentionally go random polarization so that you can get the highest possible photon density through the fiber before four-wave mixing and SBS start to kick in.
So, yeah, I'm not as qualified as Ken is on designs of the systems, but I think the demand that is there to be able to tune, I think that's something that everyone's looking at. So I don't think, I can't say that it won't be done. Is it going to build off the fiber or build off of another technology? I think that's TBD. I think one of the advantages that we have right now with the fiber is it's a light energy source that is easily or is economically a good basis for any advancement. And so it could happen. And so I'd leave it at that.
And talking about the advancement of fiber laser technology, what power levels are forecasted to be achieved by fiber lasers?
Military or non-military?
Both?
I mean, we openly display that we've sold 100 kilowatt systems. So I think that you start to wonder, okay, if that's for manufacturing purposes, what am I manufacturing?
Yep.
And I have to say that those were for either research and for manufacturing purposes. So right now, it's the great thing about the technology of fiber lasers is it's really been a truly scalable. I mean, when you go back and look at the older technologies, you would have a collection of different technologies for little areas, low power, it could be a sealed CO2, then you'd have DC, you'd have high frequency for CO2 systems, you got into flash lamp, you got into CW for neodymium mag. So there was a wide, to get to certain power lengths or power levels and beam quality, you had, if you would, little technologies, but I'd say across the board, the fiber is touched almost, the whole gamut of applications, from a few watts to, 100 kilowatts. So, I think right now it's very scalable, and really it's what's the demand for. So.
Sure. Ken or Nat?
Yeah, I don't have much to add to that. Certainly IPG is, for a long time, been sort of first power. I should also point out that it was probably about 7 or 8 years ago, IPG demonstrated 10 kilowatts of single mode power, but again, that was sort of government use demonstration. What we're seeing now, however, is sort of, the sort of Six Sigma, let's build 1,000 of these or several thousand of these, where the power level is at sort of the 2 to 3 kilowatt single mode level, where that's now becoming industrially attractive for remote welding. So again, like Paul says, the technology is there, the technology is scalable. It's simply a matter of, is it going to be a government opening their wallets to get what they need when they need it, or is it going to be the market being sizable enough that the design to manufacturing can come to fruition and bring out a certain power level?
Great. Nat, did you want to add anything?
I'm fine. I was just going to ask Paul, sort of like a military type question, but you think there are perhaps direct energy applications in the military for fiber laser?
I go on YouTube. I mean, I think you can see a number of applications where they've been looking. Let's go back. It wasn't that long ago that we were looking at putting a iodine laser in a 747 and flying it over and shooting down ABM missiles. And the guy flips the switch and hopefully it turns on when you ask it to. But I think now when you start looking at what's possible through fiber lasers and some of the capabilities of solid state technology and the fact that we now have efficiencies that are approaching 40%, that does seem like it is going to have military applications. I don't think it's going to be a version of the same laser you're going to be welding a car with, but if you would, it is showing a direction of a technology that has some capabilities that we didn't have in the past. So, does that answer it?
Yes, it does. Thank you, Paul.
Nat, did you have anything else?
I guess the basic question is, given that the core technology is really a optical amplifier type technology, Do you foresee any other applications for this type of technology outside of laser processing, other photonic devices?
I'm not sure I understand what, you mean other applications we'd use the fiber laser for besides replacement?
Well, to use the core technology for.
Yeah, I'll go back. Dave, how long ago was it that we had the discussion about how much of an impact fiber lasers are going to have on the laser industry? It's been 8 years, 9 years? At least 10 years? Okay. And I think that's the question. I mean, if you actually look at what fiber lasers have meant to the laser industry, and you always look at the annual growth and everything, and you see that the fiber laser is grown much faster than the industry. However, at the same time, a lot of that growth has come from replacement. Ken commented about, replacing pulse yags, or now with either QCW or actual pulsed fiber lasers have replaced the old lamp pumped or flash lamp pumped YAG systems and things like that. I think the question really becomes, when we stop replacing and start coming up with new applications that are out there that we haven't seen yet. Whether it's replacing a laser or replacing an arc weld, or like you were saying in remote welding, how many times are we actually not replacing or coming to a new application? We're actually replacing a resistant spot welder. And so those are the applications that are, if you would, the low-hanging fruit. What's out there that we can make a difference on that may make a huge impact on our industry, where there's a large demand for lasers, fiber lasers in particular. So is it, direct communications? Is it, it's the unknown. We don't know what we don't know yet. And until we can find a really niche market that is going to really utilize fiber lasers in particular, we can't really, we got to keep looking. And I think, to put a plug in for ICALEO, this is a place where someone could come in here and say, hey, I just found a way to cut down trees a lot more effectively with a laser than a chainsaw, and it's going to save us billions of dollars or whatever. Or we found a way to stop the polar ice caps from melting by using a laser. I mean, it sounds crazy, but if we could find a new application that's just not known yet, that will make the next big difference, possibly to the industry as a whole. And I think that, if anything, the fiber lasers is now mature enough and reliable enough and cost-effective enough that we can actually look at it as an energy source to address these new challenges that we may have.
Yeah, I guess I'd like to address Nate's question a little bit more from a laser design perspective. So Nate, you said the fiber laser is essentially an amplifier, and in a lot of cases it can be. So sometimes you put the gratings on both ends and that becomes a resonator. But in the case of like the MOPA pulse lasers, you put a semiconductor seed, and then you've got all the agility of essentially a telecoms type semiconductor source with the power and the intensity that comes from the fiber amplifier. I'll steal one of Paul's data sheets. You also can have a remote amplifier, a solid state amplifier at the end of the fiber to bring the intensity to the workpiece above what your SPS limited fiber generated energy might be. So basically, you can look at fiber technology as being a great way to generate a lot of intensity that can do a lot of work, and you can put stuff at the front end in terms of making MOPAs or maybe femtoseconds or whatever it might be, and then you can put stuff at the other end to get the delivered power up to where it needs to be.
Great. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your insight. That is time. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for our panelists. Thank you, Ken, Paul, and Nat.
Thank you both. Thanks, Ken.
Okay, up next we have our